more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. I'm Susan Burrell, and you are listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And at the get-go, I always remind our listeners, if you've missed out on any kind of listening pleasure on our show, go to livingyourinspiredlife.org, and you can check out all the awesome and amazing conversations we've been having over the last year. Plus, we have stuff that we did a few years ago, so you can just kind of go into the archival records and get tuned up and tuned in. So that's livingyourinspiredlife.org. So today I have a treat for you. This is an author who has written a book about something that I imagine a lot of people don't really know about. And so I was excited to see that she was coming out with a new book discussing this thing that I think a lot of people don't know about. So you're going to have a learning curve today, everybody. Get ready, tighten your seatbelts, and I want to welcome Linda Howe to the show today. Hi, Linda.
Oh, good. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Wonderful to be here.
So you have, I'm trying to decide if I want to say the title of the book first. I'm going to say the title of the book first, because your journey in this lifetime has been really kind of an incredible journey of research in a way. So the book is called Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, Taking Your Life from Ordinary to Extraordinary. And I love that. There's a lot of people that I'm having the conversation with of who am I now? You know, things in consciousness has just totally changed up. And a lot of people are wandering around going, well, who am I now? And what's my purpose? Why am I here on the planet? And things like that. So it sounds like this book is very timely.
Yes. And it really is. It really addresses, what you're suggesting is this business of, being aware of our soul's purposes and our path and our destiny, and how do we maintain our spiritual awareness and sensitivity, and at the same time engage effectively in the world. This is, I think it's the big question of our age, and that's what this book addresses.
And it's better than just making, and I talk to a lot of people, well, if I just had a mission statement or a purpose statement, I'm like, no, this time around, you have to go deeper and higher to know what your soul's path is.
Yes. And do you know what's interesting and I know exactly what you mean about people saying that, if I could just get it down into a paragraph or something, right, and put it on an index card. But I think that really speaks to this awareness that we have, that somewhere within the core of our being lies, our mission is living, right? Our destiny is alive, and we struggle. We try to get to it through our mind, and we try to get, there's so many, we're reaching. And part of the reason this is so challenging is that we are the first generation in history of secular individuals who are really stepping into this question, right? How to be responsible in this way, how to take on this level of authority. And so in some ways it's so familiar, and in other ways we're just baffled.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm nodding my head as you were saying that, Linda. I agree with you. It is the human consciousness that we as individuals, not and collective, but we are the secular, like you said, the secular
Yes.
group that is kind of putting into practice the thing that's within us that keeps calling us to be alive.
Yes. This has never been done. And so, in a way, we all know it. I mean, people are hearing the call of the prompting of our own soul, right? That is really causing so many of us to sit up and take notice. But when we look to our predecessors, I mean, I know, my parents were wonderful people, but they didn't know anything about this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, then we look, so our predecessors didn't know about it, and to our children and grandchildren, I know my son, who is 22, says, "What's the big deal, Mom? Everybody knows God's within. I don't know why you guys talk about it all the time."
I feel like we are the end cap of previous lives, the end cap of generations, and our kids are the ones that came in with the chip already embedded in them, the remembering chip. They don't even have to go through the process of remembering. They just get it.
Oh, right. No. They already know.
Yeah. So,
right.
Linda, let's talk, for my listeners who don't know what the Akashic Records are, will you explain it to them?
Oh, of course. Now, this is what the Akashic Record is. It is a vibrational archive of every soul and their journey. So what that means in practical terms is that we are all in it. Okay, everybody's in the record, and it's invisible, right? It runs parallel to the human experience.
Oh,
okay?
that's interesting.
So the record is related to the human realm. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And it's because it's related to the human soul. So it's embedded at the soul level. So it's the soul level dimension of consciousness. And everyone's records, like your records, my records, every set of records has two parts. The first part is it's fixed, it's permanent, it's like the blueprint of your soul.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and we could also see that as your divine potential. It's like at the point of inception of the soul, you're embedded with your potential, and then what travels along with this part that's fixed is it's the collection of stories. It's like the catalog of the lifetimes you live through which you awaken to your potential. And then realize it, right? You live it on the earth. So there are two parts, and that part, like the Chronicles of You, right? But it really is that collection. That is more mutable. It's evolving. It's emerging. It's revealing, and these two travel together.
Okay, so let me.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. To me, it makes perfect sense. But let me just kind of tease some of this out for people that don't travel in the world we do, because this can be very new information for my listeners. So the first part that you said is the divine pattern of your soul, or the pattern of your divine potential. Now let me ask you, and then I want to ask you about the second part. But so is my divine potential the same as everybody's divine potential? Because it seems like if we have a divine potential, isn't it all the same?
All right. What a great question. I love it. Okay. Okay. Now, because we are all one soul.
Oh,
right?
Gosh. Now we're complicating things. Okay.
Okay. Now we're getting, but that's it. Okay. Because the record, right, it's the archive of the soul. And that's why I bring that up. But here's what we have. While it is true that we are all, we do share there are themes that we all share. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, there are distinctions between us. There are unique expressions, unique, distinctions, right? Characteristics, traits that we all have. So what I would say to this is, on one hand, while it is true that we are all here to come to love ourselves unconditionally. Okay?
Is that the potential?
It's an imperative of all souls,
Okay.
right? This
Okay.
is what we're all doing. However, the unfolding of that is radically different. It can be very different, right? And the patterns involved, the particular challenges, right? Because there is a unique quality, and you know this, Susan. One of the ways this has become very real to me, is if I walk into a room of people that I know, people that I don't know, and I just close my eyes and I get a sense, at one level, I'm in a room of people, and there's a commonality to that. And if I sit there a little longer with my eyes closed and my heart open, right, I can begin to get a sense of the different individuals who are present. So on one hand, and you know how this is, I mean, people, there's an essence that defines this is the way we know one another. And that is, so does this help?
Yes.
Yeah, and it is that. So there is one level at which, if we're talking in the big picture, like, oh my God, the soul's destiny. Well, at some level, we are all here to come to love ourselves unconditionally and all others and the whole of creation. Okay, and yet the journeys that we take are varied and really, it's the full spectrum of life.
So but this is what we talk about on Living Your Inspired Life all the time, that we're all connected, we're all one. So that's why I was wondering if we all had the same divine potential. And in on one hand, you're saying yes, and how we get there is all different.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then let me ask you another question off of the second part thing.
Yes.
And because I'm going to the R word, reincarnation, because there are a lot of people that do not believe it even happens. They refute it. And or there's other people that go, oh yeah, and I remember when. I remember the other lifetime, So do you have to believe in reincarnation to believe or get that there is an Akashic record somewhere? I guess you don't have to believe in it. But
You don't have to. But here's what I'd like to introduce about reincarnation from the work I've done in the records, okay? Now, I have to tell you, when I first started working in the records, I believed, I thought it was true, this old idea that, that there is, that the reincarnational cycle was about, you have a good life, then you have a bad life, then you punch somebody in the nose, then they punch you back. It's all this very dualistic, right?
Yep.
Okay, good, bad, right, wrong.
Karma.
And and that at the end, I don't know, we all zero out or something. Okay, but here's what I learned in the record. That the journey of the soul through a series of incarnations is for the purpose, right, to experience a variety of opportunities through which we can love ourselves unconditionally, first of all. So what happens from an Akashic perspective is we come into the lifetime and, we come in and we go from lifetime to lifetime really challenged to love who we are no matter what. And if it's interesting to me that in a religious context, and the records are referred to in all the major religions, but it's that we are challenged to love ourselves as we are known and loved from a divine perspective. So we go for some lifetimes it's very easy to love ourselves. I mean, I don't know. When I'm meeting all my goals and I'm at my, ideal weight, I love myself.
Right.
When my behavior is less than wonderful, I'm not so sure. So so as we grow, I can love myself when I'm Mother Teresa. Can I love myself when I burn the village down? Can I love myself? So we grow through this, and as we come to know and love ourselves unconditionally, then what happens is we have the opportunity to grow into that in our relationships with other people. See, and this really, for me personally, altered my understanding of the purpose of really the idea behind reincarnation. See, this made sense to me as I began to see that, well, great, as I come to love and accept myself, I can much more easily love and accept others and all of life. And really the opportunity is that we all grow in love and acceptance for one another to bring all of life to its fulfillment, right? This is a different approach as far from what I understood. It's a different approach to the idea of reincarnation. And so and I don't know if that's helpful to people. You know.
Well, this is interesting because what's coming up for me as you're saying that, I personally agree with you, Linda, that's the whole purpose and reason for being alive on the planet. But it's interesting with all the violence that's happened around the world in the last month. In California there was a mass shooting just yesterday. So with all this violence that's happening all around the world, then to tune into a show and go, and our real purpose is to love ourselves. Well, so how does that get explained in the Akashic Records? With those violent.
And you know what this is, Susan? This is such a great question because it is so. I mean, I know I'm personally struggling with this. I mean, it's devastating, this level of violence. But so looking at this in my own records, right? I mean, what I am really challenged to is can I love and accept myself in this feeling of powerlessness? Can I understand? See, when I look at these, they have the profiles of these shooters, and oh my God, these poor people. But and everyone involved, the level of pain is just excruciating.
Yeah.
But when I recognize what I caught a glimpse of in the records is that these individuals, like no one sets out to say, I am going to ruin life for myself and everybody else. These are people. The tragedy is, it is their best idea. These are people who are seeking a sense of peace and justice and certainty and wholeness and wellness. And at this moment in time, they believe the best way to achieve peace is through these heinous acts. And we see this whether it's these individual violent extravaganzas, or it's global tyrants.
Yeah.
You see, these are people who have they have the understanding that what they're doing is for good. And it's really, and I know it's very confused, it's a real misunderstanding, but these are people who are trying desperately to achieve a sense of love and peace within themselves and their worlds.
So, Linda, I want to read a quote from your book, Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, because you said the Akashic Records contain an experiential body of wisdom that comprises everything that every soul has ever thought, said, and done over the course of its existence, as well as all its future possibilities. And then you went on to say that the records are formed of energy and exist simultaneously within us as people and beyond the material world in the vibrational dimension. So I wanted to read that with what you're saying about people being confused and this was their best idea. So every thought, okay, let's talk about me because it's always all about me. But so every thought, anything I've ever said, done, and may do in the future is all encased in these records. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so if my best idea is to go out and kill someone, how do I learn from that the next time? Because like if I come into the next life and I don't remember what I did before, you know what I mean? How does that?
Okay, so every experience we have impacts our vibrational body. It impacts our identity, right?
Okay.
Okay, so even if I don't have a literal memory of it, I have an experiential memory of it. Right?
Energetically.
I have a sense, it's okay. So here's what we can consider. So in this lifetime, I really don't have any inclination to get a semi-automatic weapon, and I don't know. I'm not interested. I mean, now when I look at this, it may well be that I tried that or something like it in a prior incarnation, and I found it wanting.
Oh.
Like, no thanks, I've been there.
Right, been there, done that, don't need to do it again.
It really, it did not work. There I was, with, I don't know, Genghis Khan, and we sacked that little village, and I thought I would feel so good, and I felt terrible.
So then so what I'm hearing you say then is there's like this intuitive that we're all born with that will inform us, yes, I have done that before, I no longer need to do that again, or wow, here it is me doing this again, now what do I want to choose?
Right.
Okay. So now let's just to give the listeners an idea, because when I see the phrase Akashic Records, I think of some big like library at the state capitol kind of thing, with a big white building with pillars.
I used to think too.
So, and then I can walk in there and there's tables and tables and tables of books that I can just open any book and read about me because it is all about me.
Yes.
Okay, so is that kind of how it is in a way?
No.
Oh, darn.
It's kind of. Listen, that's actually, I mean, that's a good starting place, right? Here's the thing. Akasha is a Sanskrit word, right? And what it means is primary substance, that from which all things are formed. So this is like the essence of life before we get to it, right? So that's what we're engaging with. It lives within, it's like infused within us as part of the fabric of our own soul. So even though the word is foreign, right, the experience is quite familiar. It is both within us and beyond us. Now, what I know, I've been teaching people how to work in their own records and to work with others since 1996, right? I came into the records in 94, started in 96 to teach. So I've been doing this for a long time, and almost to a person, everyone who works in their records says things like this. Oh, I have felt this before. I know this. I've been here before, because it's so much a part of ourselves. The issue is that we bump into it at random, and I was given this pathway prayer process to access the heart of the records. I was given that in 2001, and it's a reliable way. It's responsible, deliberate, reliable way to move into this dimension of awareness and out, right, of our own volition. So we don't have to just hope for the random encounter. So that's how that goes. Now, within the record, the past, present, and future of us all is held, right? The like what's actually happened and the potentials. Now, here's what's fascinating to me. From a record stand, but the truth of the matter is we don't need to know everything at this moment in time, and if we did, our heads would explode or something unpleasant.
Yeah.
See, what comes to us in the records come to us in the moment, right? To empower and enable us to see who we are and the situations we are currently facing through the lens of our own soul. Okay, now, if something, I mean, we've had, we can say, oh my God, we've had countless prior incarnations, but the fact of the matter is many of them are resolved. We don't have to rummage through old garbage if it's been taken out. We don't need that. And there are many future probabilities and possibilities, right, that have yet to be determined because we are evolving, growing beings. So, so when we go into the record, it's really what really works. So we're talking about a subtle shift in our awareness. It's like stepping into a sanctuary, right, where we can hear that inner. Some people, very few people actually hear. Maybe 5% of the people who work in the records hear. Maybe 10% see a lot of images. But then, most of us have that sense of knowing, and so when we move into this state, we can begin to see and know ourselves from this perspective, that spiritual perspective of wholeness and wellness and really the immutable goodness of our own soul. We begin to see this and the circumstances we face. And from an Akashic perspective, it's creation is a whole, right? So anything I am wrestling with in the present, if it's a particular relationship, a work issue, a health challenge, any of these things, they are always, we access it through the present, but these are matters that are often carryovers from other times and places. And the way we come to understand those is through the presenting issue at the time. So this idea, I like to think of it much more. There was a gentleman from this Astara Foundation in the late 80s, early 90s. His last name was Cheney, and he wrote this very brief piece on the records. And he likened it to the cosmic internet. And I remember this was when the internet was new.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. But it really is. Who ever heard of such a thing, right? But working with it, and it's like, okay, so we're gonna go to your website, or we're gonna Google you. But as opposed to, the internet is, of course, an external expression of our consciousness. The internet is about information and knowledge, and the records are about soul-held wisdom, cultivated over incarnations.
Oh, I like that phrase, soul-held wisdoms.
Yes.
So in your book, Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, Taking Your Life from Ordinary to Extraordinary, you talk about pillars of consciousness. Can we tap on that for a little bit, on the 5 pillars?
Oh, sure. Well, do you know what? And I'll tell you how I came to this. Yes. In my own journey, the first piece was to find a method that was true for me, and that was this pathway prayer process, the Akashic Records. The second piece was individual personal healing, which, unconditional self-love. And then I found I was really challenged to trying to maintain my spiritual awareness and go out into the world. And I would be like, oh, heavens. I was overwhelmed and a little discombobulated. Mm-hmm. I thought, how do you do this, right? So I took the matter into my records, and I was introduced to, I wasn't quite sure what it was actually. I saw these, like at the core of our being, we have a pillar of infinite light and grace. And I was like sitting in that, and I had this awareness of these 5 smaller columns of light that were ideas, right, or concepts. And from the top, from an overhead view, it looked like a 5-pointed star. Oh. And I began the exploration of this because even though it was, it took my breath away, I didn't know what it meant. So it meant that I had a few years of inner work to do, which was fine. So, but here's what they are. This 5-pointed star structures our internal reality so that we can move out from the deepest part of ourselves into the world and engage and return, right? We can come and go freely so that the light at the core of our being can just shine freely, which is really all it wants to do. So the 5 points on this are, and they're in a very particular order. The first is incarnation, followed by authority, then discipline, responsibility, and commitment. Now, none of these words thrill me.
Yeah,
I like
they're
words
kind of
like-
they're kind of dense and
I know, they're like so ordinary world. I just wanted to weep.
yeah.
But that was the problem. The problem was that I was unaware of the spiritual essence of each one of these concepts. So here's what this is. So incarnation, that's to be a soul in a body, right? A human being. And really, from what I learned from my records, that who I am as a person, who you are as a person, Susan, who everyone is as an individual, that each one of us is an ideal agent for our soul's purposes. And until we make peace with who we are as human beings, the good, the bad, all of it, perfect, imperfect, until we make peace with our human identity, we're not going to be effective in the world. And I'm very much, I know with my friends and I, there were years there we laughed about, we're all walk-ins and we're, wrong family of origin, blah, blah.
Yeah.
None of that. See, that's very disempowering.
Right.
So, okay, so the first is incarnation. Then the next challenge is authority. And again, this was another area of great, I had a lot of spiritual misunderstanding because I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm God in my universe. Well, yes, that's, as a soul, I am infinite, eternal, immortal, unlimited, and as a human being, I am a mere mortal. And on this plane, as long as I'm on earth, there is authority greater than I am. Mm-hmm. And the question is, can I make peace with the fact that perfect authority, like the authority of life itself, is transmitted through imperfect agents?
Wait, say that
really,
again,
right?
Linda. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the authority on earth is transmitted by imperfect agents. Well, that certainly explains the government, doesn't it?
Well, it explains government. It explains the bad boss.
Mm-hmm.
It explains imperfect parents.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to people and it's like, my parents were terrible, and you talk to the parents and the parents are like, I love my child. So it's like, where is the disconnect? Well, it's, this is, and even the government, the people in government, they're not saying let's ruin everything. They're saying let's do our best. They just all have very different ideas about what that is.
Right, right.
But it's like, okay, and there is planetary life. The sun, I live in Chicago. That sun, what it looks like is that the sun comes up over Lake Michigan every morning, and it's going to come up whether I sleep in or not. And I have to make peace with that. And once I do, I move into alignment with the power of life itself.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. The practice of it, it can be challenging,
the practice is really, I know the practice is hair-raising. It's like, wow, wait a minute. No, I know, listen, I want you to know, this this book, it took me a long time. I'm like, I'm in my records. I'm like, really, are you sure about this? And then it would be like, well, go out today and look at all your authority figures and talk to them and find out their intentions and motives, right? And as I talk to people, I would find out that, yes, they really want the best. Fascinating.
So, okay. So then let's go on with because the next one is discipline,
The next one's discipline. I didn't like this any better than authority.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing about discipline. So we move into, we got it, we're here, we've got a little more energy because we're not fighting authority, and now we have all this energy, and the question is, how do I make the best use of this life force?
That's
right?
a good question.
Right, it really is. And then, but see, discipline, right, repeated thought and action, what that does is it weaves for us structures, whether they're internal, whether, they're discipline of thought, right, or discipline of action. Discipline weaves these structures that enable the life force to flow in a directed manner. Okay, now here's the other thing about discipline. It is from the word disciple, little religious, I understand, but that is all about listening. The truth is, when we have supportive, appropriate disciplines It quiets the mind. They tame the ego so we can hear the voice of truth within us. Right?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense. And it can be as simple as, okay, that's it. I'm going to exercise whether I like it or not. Get off the debate team.
Yep.
Okay. So that's discipline.
I love that you just said that, get off the debate team, because that is what goes on in my head all the time. We're going to argue this.
I'm like, oh, please.
Okay, so and these are, again, just so everybody, if you're just tuning in, these are pillars of consciousness. This is how I move through my conscious awareness. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Now the next piece, the next pillar, is responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is another one. Oh my heavens! See. Responsibility to ourselves and others, right? The fact is we are interdependent creatures, and we do have responsibilities to one another, to ourselves and others. Okay.
I like that you say to ourselves first, because, up until recently in my life, my responsibility was to others first, and I came last.
Right.
Which I think is kind of typical for women of our generation.
Yes, it is. But see, yes, because the old idea is that if we took care of others, we would somehow get the leftovers and it would be enough.
Oh, my God, that just hurts to hear you say that.
I know, isn't that like...
But it's true. It's true.
I know, it's like, ow! But the truth is that in this lifetime, again, the age of martyrdom is over. It's over. We wore it out, Susan. So
I guess I have to erase that big red M on my forehead now, Linda.
I have to get a different T-shirt, right? But here's how this is. This is the age, again, another time we know we're in a significant change in human consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time where we are called, to how can I care for others,
mm-hmm.
Nurture and sustain me at the same time? It is a new question. For the first time in history, we are exploring the idea of being nurtured and sustained by the service we offer, as opposed to depleted and diminished.
That has been my experience up until now. I will tell you, when I serve, I get exhausted.
Right.
So
right. This is the time. This is the time for the change. See, now the question is, what can I do? What can I offer that inspires and invigorates me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the place to move from, right? Because the giving is for the giver. And I understand we have to take care of one another. That's absolutely true. But we want to be looking at the distinction between true soul-level responsibilities and false. True soul-level responsibilities, no matter how hard they are, we feel good. At some level, we feel like satisfied, like, yes, that was the right thing. It was really terrible, but it was the right thing. It was a lot of work, but, there's a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. Whereas false responsibility, we can never do enough. There's never enough.
Right. And that's the thing that is exhausting.
Right, because the law is you cannot give people what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough of it. So we want to look there. But true responsibilities, it turns out, are the crucible through which our personalities are transformed and refined, so that we really can, so that light within can shine out. Do you know? I know, with my son, a lot of things in parenting, he's 22 now, thank God. There's a lot of it I just thought, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to go to the school and talk to the teacher.
Right. No, I get it.
See, I'm like, oh, do I have to? Like who's the parent here? And like when my mother, I was caring for her, and in her final years, she was around the corner from me, and I didn't want to go meet with the people at the nursing home. Who wants to do that? But it was interesting because it was through those activities, through those responsibilities I have to the people I love, that I had to let go of my fears and my limiting patterns and my judgments and preconceived notions about the system and how it works and what people should do. All of that had to go, and I had to go beyond how I knew myself. And that was remarkable.
So these are all just learning opportunities, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
As
Absolutely
we stand
learning and growing.
As we recognize that there are components that we need to, it almost feels like you call them 5 pillars, but I also, as you're talking, I'm seeing them as different, as hurdles in some way of, wow, okay, now I'm incarnated, now I'm a human being, and now I've got to really let go of the idea that I am the big person in life and surrender to a higher authority, and then I have to be disciplined about all of this experience so that I can bring my soul purpose forward. It does feel a little bit like hurdles, Linda.
Okay, but here's the thing, which actually brings us to the fifth pillar.
Okay.
Which is commitment.
Okay.
Okay? Commitment, commitment is like, that's like when we put the safety brake on the roller coaster.
Uh-huh.
Okay? You make the commitment, yippee, right, you're in.
But see, I don't even get on the roller coaster. I can tell it's going to be a roller coaster. I'm like, not going there now. Okay.
Right, but here's the thing. Once we make a commitment to whatever we're doing, when we make a commitment to the path that we're walking, commitment unleashes the power of the path. Every human experience has within it unlimited natural resources to empower us, to nurture us, to fuel us, to guide us, to sustain us on our way. But the path doesn't give it up, so to speak, until we commit. And I know, I'll tell you something, like for myself, I want to get the goodies, then I'll commit. And what I learned through this process is like, it doesn't work that way. But once I make the commitment, I'm turbocharged. The path itself starts to feed me. It's wonderful. So that instead of hurdles, and they are vertical pillars, right?
Right.
Because they really hold us up. They enable us to stand in dignity and grace and be the people we have been longing to be for centuries on the earth.
It makes sense to me. And these and that, I guess that's why they seem like everyday, ordinary words: incarnation, authority, discipline, responsibility, and commitment.
Very ordinary.
And yet
very ordinary, and each with a spiritual essence. And when I become aware of the spiritual essence, then I shift from ordinary to extraordinary living.
So let's talk a little bit more. I appreciate you explaining all this. Let's talk a little bit more about the records themselves, because what you've been saying as you've been describing all this is you say, and then I go into my records, and so I can't quite grasp the question I want to ask, Linda. It's almost like if you go into the records, shouldn't it all be written down there and just kind of in plain black and white?
Right. Okay. So here's how
so
this
sorry
goes.
to be so.
I get this. No, I know you're okay. I got it. Okay. Here's how this goes. Okay, so imagine a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Not the iCloud, just a cloud.
Not just any, right.
Okay.
Not the iCloud.
Because I can't even imagine the iCloud, I'll tell you.
I know, that's incomprehensible, isn't it?
Okay. Okay, anyway, imagine a cloud.
Something like the iCloud. Okay, but that's all right. So so when we engage in our own records, here's the okay, I don't want to go there. Here's a better way to explain it. Okay, so if the soul of your being is, let's say it's right the floor of your heart center, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, and there is radiating up from your soul of light, right? A body of light, Akashic light. Okay, that is the consciousness. It's the cumulative consciousness of who you have ever been and who you are becoming. So it's not. It's what has happened, and it's potentials as well, yet to be realized. Okay, and it's a field of light bubbling up, right, rising up through your being, connecting you to the God source, to the source of all life. The Akashic Record is this bridge of light.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, connecting us from the soul to the source. So what happens, it's a dimension that holds us steady with everything we need, and it's all in there as we awaken to the truth of our oneness with the divine and all of creation. It holds us steady in that process. Okay? Now, when we go into the record, there is, because we are on Earth, very important to notice that.
Yeah.
Because we're on Earth, what we encounter, it needs to be useful, right? This is the age where our spirituality is taking us into life rather than away from it. We've done that for a long time. It's been fun, but now it's time to take it out into the streets, so to speak. So when I go into my records, what I do is I use the pathway prayer process. Very simple process. I follow the instructions. They're in the book. Very simple. It's on my website too, right? You go into the record and experience a slight shift in awareness that enables you to register the impressions, right, of what's in there.
Right, right.
Right, and it's a space within which we can examine and explore our present-day concerns. And what is available in the record then is we can ask, what is the source of this problem, right? And because there's no time in the record, we find out this problem originated hundreds of years ago, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay? Okay. So, and then we take it out. The records are relational. See, the age of like some spiritual authority telling us who we are and what we have to do and all that, that's over. So this is that we engage in this dimension for our own upliftment, for the clarification of our own minds and hearts, so that we become it. I mean, we're already it, and at some levels we know it, but we have to clear away the garbage in the way, the obstructions to our perfection, right? But when we work in the records, we go in, we start with where we are in the present. We can ask questions. You know, I had a great situation a while back, and my issue was this. I had this crazy sense that if I spoke up for myself, I would get killed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now listen, Susan, that doesn't make sense. No one's ever held a gun to my head. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of like, well, that's pretty. And then, so I was like, I did, these, assertiveness, and then I was mad at, like, my mother and my sisters and my aunts because they were lousy role models, and, I'm doing all that. But I couldn't get to the bottom of this, okay? And my reaction was really, it made no sense given my experience in this life. So I brought it into my records, and lo and behold, this was so wild. I had the sense of being a little girl, probably, 6 or 8, holding on to her mother's skirt in this hut, not a hut, more like a cottagey thing. And there were soldiers there. There was no father on the scene. It seemed he was off to war. There were a bunch of kids, and these soldiers came in. And the mother was she was good. She said to these guys, "You get out of my house." And the soldiers were like, "If you don't shut your mouth, we'll kill you." And And she said, oh, you can't do that. And you know what happened. And anyway, they killed her. And at that moment, the little girl, who I believe was me, made the decision that it was really a bad thing to speak up.
Right.
She got it.
Right.
And when I saw that, I thought, you know, at that moment in time, that was a great idea. That was a life-saving idea. And in that awareness, it was as if years of self-frustration and judgment and resentment and annoyance with my role models, it all dissolved because I saw it was at the point of origin, it was a beautiful, loving idea. And because it was a life-saving idea for me, I taught it to my children who taught, you know, and we're all our own ancestors. If
Right,
you believe in
right.
oneness, you know, you're your own great-great-great-grandmother or something. But do you see? It was a radical shift. It was from ordinary to extraordinary. And it was through this very dynamic engagement in my own records, exploring an everyday life situation. It happens all the time.
So I totally agree with you. I've had similar experiences where I've gone back and seen or heard or felt without having to live through it again, a past lifetime that really informed me, oh, that's why my behavior is this way, or that's why I have this reaction to that person. And 9 times out of 10, I would internally shift and often shift toward greater love. Not only for myself, but for others. It's just been a whole heart-expanding experience to do that.
Yes.
So can I ask you a question? We've got about 5 more minutes, Linda.
Oh, sure. Ask me anything.
I want to ask you a question about the you know, there are people in our lives that that we maintain relationships with that no longer serve us. So how do you get them out of your life? How do we deal with that?
Okay. So here's, good news, bad news, right?
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. So here's the idea. The fact is we have to, especially for old souls, especially for, you know, people have been awakening for a while now. The challenge is, can I love myself in the presence of people who don't get me? We can't get them out of our lives. We're related to them.
So oh, man.
So we have to be, can I be myself in the presence of this individual? And can I respect their right to be who they are?
But that also means I don't have to participate with them anymore, right? I mean, what about the boundary thing that's been really popular lately?
I don't know about that. Here's the thing. You don't know. Nowhere is it written you have to spend time with people you don't like.
Oh, good.
There's no value in that.
It's not in the record somewhere. You have to sit with the jerk you don't like forever.
No. You have to let them be the way they are.
Okay, I can do that as long as I don't have to be in their presence.
But here's the law. The law is whatever we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. So anything that we do to try to protect ourselves, right?
Right, keeps us in separation.
Well, not only that, it's going to keep them in your life.
Yep.
I mean, you never want to build a shield. First of all, it's like insane. I mean, it's delusional. Because the fact is, we are all one. That is the fact. There's don't even bother cutting a cord. I mean, that is a joke. And you're talking to somebody who's got a lot of cords, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still related to these people.
Right. Yep.
So the thing is, but see, here's the challenge. How do I love myself when I don't love these people? How do I love myself when I have no tolerance, patience, or understanding? How do I love myself when I want to punch that guy in the nose?
Wow, when you put it that way.
I feel like a victim.
Yeah.
These are the things that can unravel this.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense when you put it that way.
Because, see, there is nothing we can do about the fact that we're related to the people we're related to. And until it's okay with us that we are related to these people, you're gonna trip over them at every party you go to. See, I say expect to see them. Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready. Their way, because really, in your heart of hearts, for all human beings, each and every one of us wants nothing more than to be free to love. It kind of like in a wild, generous way. And that's what we're learning.
That's what we're learning right now.
How to love ourselves and others.
And in loving myself, even though I have being okay with my judgments or my accusations, and if I can love myself, then that helps open the door to loving that person that you're judging.
Yes, we have to start where we are.
Right.
The question is, how do I love myself even though I have no tolerance for this human being? I mean, let's get, I think, see, this is where I think, I want to say one of the great paradoxes, right? And you're very aware of it, Susan, and I know your listeners are too. Like, on one hand, how is it possible that I am infinite, eternal, immortal, all loving, and at the same time, I am so mortal and flawed and limited? How is it? What is up? And the truth is, there is something. We are moving into this greatness that actually is beyond. It actually encompasses. It's a fusion, right?
Right.
Fusion, where our human and divine selves are fused as one unit, and this is where we're headed as beings.
Linda, we're at the end of our time together, and this went by way so fast. So
wow.
I've been talking to Linda Howe. The book is Discover Your Soul's Path through the Akashic Records, taking your life from ordinary to extraordinary. And your website for everybody is akashicstudies.com. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, Linda, thank you for the gift that you are. Thank you for all the research and bringing it out into the world. I am deeply moved to have had you on the show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's just been wonderful. Thanks so much, Susan.
And I'm going to end with, and so it is, namaste.